Becoming an influencer overnight would be a dream come true for so many people. All it can take is one viral video to kickstart a career that promises fame and fortune. But what if that dream has actually become a nightmare? A nightmare where someone holds you captive, forcing you to perform in front of a camera day and night. Well, this was 22-year-old Chen Xiaofeng's reality. She went viral on China's version of TikTok after posting some dancing videos, and within 2 months she had 500,000 followers. But all was not as it seemed, because there was a puppeteer behind her videos, someone forcing her to film content whilst keeping every penny that they earned to himself. And when Xiaofeng tried to escape this situation, this person relentlessly stalked her and chased her down like she was prey. He ran after her through the crowded city and eventually dragged her into a game store. And as this was happening, passers-by were starting to recognize the influencer. From the other side of the shop window, people were pulling their phones out to record and take pictures of what was happening to her. Only Xiaofeng wasn't posing for the photos, she wasn't dancing for the videos. She was laying on the ground, bleeding to death. This is the tragic story of Chen Xiaofeng, a young, beautiful woman who was hunted down in front of an audience who just stopped and watched her die. All because she tried to escape a man and a life that she never wanted. This series is intended for educational purposes, to memorialise victims and to amplify important conversations. All opinions stated are mine alone. Before we jump into today's case, I want to thank our sponsor for making this episode possible, Casetify. I have a public service announcement, everyone listen up. Did you know that Casetify are doing their biggest sale of the year from the 22nd of November, and it's only on for 2 weeks? Well, now you know. And the discount just gets higher with the more items that take your fancy. So if you get 1 item, you get 15% off. Buy 2 items, you get 25% off. Buy 3 items and get a whole 30% off. So you guys already know I got myself in on the action. I got myself a few new phone cases because I couldn't help myself. I'm gonna unbox a couple with you right now. You might be noticing that one of them is not in the box. It's because I couldn't help myself. It's already on my phone. This is my favorite pattern of the whole new stuff that I've got. My laptop is currently matching with my phone. I'm so obsessed with these bow cases that I literally had to get a matching one for each device that I have. And as I was showing you before, of course, I got a few other patterns as well. This one I actually had on last week, and you're seeing this right. That is mirrored. That's actually you there. You're the camera. And not only is she a gorgeous case, I actually have some kind of matching accessories to go with it. This round one is like a little poppy grippy thing to help you hold your phone. And I'm so grateful that this is like magnet to the back of your phone, because I've wanted one of these for ages. I used to have them on my phones, but do you remember they only used to stick on using a sticker, and then they'd ruin your case underneath. So I haven't had one for years. I'm so glad that they do them magnetic now. And I also got this one, which is a card holder and a kickstand in one. And the fact that it's got little card storage, girls, when you're going on a night out, you can put your ID in here and then you can just use Apple Pay. It's perfect. And lastly, sorry, this haul's a bit long, but I got really excited on the Casetify website, can you tell? I got this beautiful pink phone strap so that I can have my phone on my body like a bag. And you know what? I am not walking around London without one of these ever again in my whole entire life. The amount of horror stories I've heard of people literally just getting their phone nabbed out of their hand in the middle of the street and then the person runs off and you never see it again. Well, good luck trying to do that if my phone is literally strapped to my body. And I think this is going to look really good with my Candy Crush case because it's the stripes. So cute. So if you want to match me with any of these gorgeous sets, or if you want to find your own vibe, there are so many to choose from on Casetify. So don't miss out on Casetify's biggest sale of the year, starting on November 22nd. And you can check out your favorite cases now by going to casetify.com/Eleanor. And let me know what you choose. I love seeing your guys mirror selfies with a matching phone case to me. It's so cute. So the link is down in the description, and thank you so much to Casetify for sponsoring this video. Quickly before we get into the case, I just want to warn you of the sensitive topics that we're going to be touching on in this episode, including discussions of domestic violence, animal abuse, rape, stalking, gambling, and murder. So viewer discretion is always advised. Now, with that being said, let's get into the tragic case of Chen Xiaofeng, a woman who was forced to live and die in front of someone else's camera. So you might have heard of Douyin makeup or Douyin fashion or the Douyin aesthetic. Think soft colours, youthful glows, ultra girly styles, and a real pursuit of health, be it nutrition, exercise, skincare. It's like a whole lifestyle, that whole like it girl vibe. And this current phase of it girl that we are in right now actually originated on a social media app that only exists in China, called Douyin. It's essentially China's version of TikTok. It has 755 million users. It's absolutely massive. You will find all different kinds of people and accounts and different kinds of content on there, with the most popular creators on the platform earning so much money from views and brand deals. I mean, I guess we know that because the biggest TikTokers do. So yeah, on every level, it's kind of the same thing where everyone can post videos, anyone can become a star. In the summer of 2018, a new user whose account had only just started posting videos in recent months suddenly began going viral and was rapidly rising as one of those bigger creators on Douyin. And the star of every video posted by this account was a 22-year-old dance teacher named Chen Xiaofeng. Chen Xiaofeng was born in 1996, and she lived in a seaside town which was on the outskirts of a city in China called Siqi. As always, a little apology for my pronunciation in this video. If you've ever watched any of my other videos, you'll know that this is a very common thing with me. I try my best to pronounce things from around the world, and sometimes it comes out sounding a bit funny and weird, but sorry. Chen Xiaofeng grew up with one older brother, and her family were actually quite wealthy because her parents owned a factory. So she had a pretty nice childhood. As a person, Xiaofeng was very gentle. She was very soft-spoken. She loved animals. She was such a kind, sweet little girl. In Chinese culture, it's tradition for parents to name their children kind of how they want them to grow up. Their name and the meaning of their name will kind of dictate the person that they grow in to become. So Xiaofeng's parents gave her the name Xiaofeng, which meant that she would grow up to be someone with an abundance of skill, someone full of technique. And that's actually crazy given the passion that she very quickly had as a child. That passion was dancing, something that she would do for the rest of her life. And Xiaofeng was a brilliant dancer as well. Literally since a tiny child, she had learned all different styles of dance. She was entering competitions, she won awards. And while she was growing up in these dance classes, Xiaofeng would often help the younger kids, you know, like fix their form and their technique and stuff like that. And she found it so rewarding to watch these tiny little people getting better and better every week. And so she decided, even while she was still a kid, that one day she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. So when she graduated school, she went on to do exactly that. At 19 years old, Xiaofeng became qualified to teach children. And she was one of those people that it just makes sense. You know, those people that were put on this earth to work with kids because they're just so gentle and sweet-natured and patient. Soon after graduating, she got a job working with like kindergarten age kids. It's around like 4 or 5 years old. So cute. And around the time she got this job, her parents very kindly got her an apartment in the city close to where she worked. And she was loving life. And the kids in her class absolutely adored her. I mean, she was probably like the youngest teacher there, and I feel like that's the treatment that the youngest teacher gets, isn't it? Like, they're always the kids' favourite. But oh my god, they love her. But in early 2017, she'd been working this job for about 2 years now, but she was getting the itch. The I miss dancing itch. So she began thinking of ways that she could turn her passion for dancing into a career. By this time, she was a fully qualified teacher with 2 years of experience, and she did love her job. She loved working with kids, and so the answer became obvious. She should teach dance to kids. She soon found a job teaching at a dance school that same year, and when she got this new job, her salary went up by a couple hundred. She is so happy with the work that she's doing that she doesn't really mind about the whole money aspect of it as long as she is fulfilling her passion for dance and putting food on the table. Like, that's all that mattered to her. So it's mid-2017. We're thinking around May time. She's 21 years old. She's dancing, she's teaching, she's slaying the damn thing. But this era of her life would unfortunately be quite short-lived. One day, Chow Fung was in the changing rooms getting ready for a performance at work when one of her colleagues noticed a tattoo. She had this cute little tattoo on her back. It had a tiny cat and a tiny little dog and 2 names. And so her colleagues start teasing her, being like, oh, is it a new boyfriend? Have you got a tattoo for your boyfriend? Yeah. Yes, it was. To their surprise, Chow Fung turned around and confessed that, yeah, she had a new man. Enter 26-year-old Wu Yi Dong. Which, interesting side note, we spoke about what Chow Fung's name meant earlier. Well, very interestingly, Yi Dong means to benefit and always have a stable roof over your head, which I guess can be a great thing. But in the context of today's case, the more you learn about this man, it is such a dark foreshadowing for the kind of person that he is, to benefit from others. But hey, this was Chow Fung's new boyfriend. The two of them had actually known each other for quite some time. He was 5 years older than her, and I believe they'd gone to the same school, but obviously 5 years apart, you're not going to know each other or pass each other, really. Their paths just hadn't really crossed at all in their lives up until he'd seen her in a bar, thought she was very pretty, and made a move. And now they were together, and now she had a tattoo. Chow Fung had always been a very popular girl growing up, very beautiful as well. A lot of boys had been interested in her life, but she'd never really bothered with any of them until Yi Dong. Her relationship with Yi Dong was her first experience of love and partnership. And I know most people on this earth can probably relate to your first ever relationship not being perfect. People learn a lot of lessons in their first romantic relationship. You learn how to love other people. It always seems to be people's first relationships where, like, your friends and family can spot all the red flags in them, but you're just so rose-tinted glasses that the flags just look like flags. And that was kind of what was happening for Chow Fung with Yi Dong. Her friends just could not understand what she saw in him because she was such a catch. She was such a beauty. She was Grace. She was amazing. But then this fella was like nothing compared to her. I guess the technical term for a man like him would be a bum. Someone who hated the idea of working a job. He was too proud to have a job, too proud to work for someone else. He hated the idea of working to make someone else rich. So he would just refuse to participate entirely in this little game we call work and the economy. Okay, well, actually, allegedly, supposedly, maybe, he said that he had a clothing line, like a clothing store. But we've all heard that one before, right? But this unemployed loser was grafting in other ways. He was grafting for Chow Fung's heart. He was full of compliments. He would shower her with gifts. He would cook her dinners. And side note, he actually graduated in culinary arts. So he was a good chef. Not only did he know how to cook a good meal, he also knew how to present it really nicely on the plate. This was a skill that he didn't pursue after graduating because, well, as we know, Yi Dong doesn't like the idea of getting a job, I guess, unless he owned the whole entire restaurant for himself, he wasn't going to work. But actually, somehow, despite not having a job, he was constantly showering Chow Fung with gifts and affection and trips out, which all sounds well and good, but it was very persistent. And there is this technique that some people use to manipulate the person that they're with in a relationship or want to be in a relationship with. They will shower them with gifts and affection and compliments. It's full on, it's fast. It's called love bombing. You know it. The internet knows what love bombing is, and this is a prime example. It's done to gain emotional control over a person. And a lot of the time, these same people that do the whole love bombing thing, I think the reason they do it is because they know that they're a shit person. So as soon as they can gain your love and make you think that they're this amazing person, they can drop the facade. But you're already in too deep now. You're already in a relationship with the person, so what are you going to do? And by that point, when people drop that facade, it's often too late. And people are married to them, or they've got kids, or, you know, they're living in a house with them. It's so scary because while you can think you're in this super sweet, loving honeymoon phase style relationship, they could just be priming you to be able to abuse you. But like all love bombing does, it eventually comes to an end, and Yi Dong's facade began to drop. Chao Feng started to see cracks in this perfect person that she once thought that he was. He'd get jealous really easy, and he would want to know where she is at all times, and if he didn't like the answer, or if he didn't receive one fast enough, it'd cause an argument. Full-blown, massive shouting, screaming argument. He was spending like every day just chilling in her apartment while she would go out to work, because she is full-time employed, she's a girl boss, and he is on her sofa eating her food, being a bum. He basically moved himself into her house rent-free, and Chao Feng didn't really like this. I mean, she liked the man at this point in time, but she wasn't attracted to this behavior, especially because she knew that her parents would really disapprove of a man like this, and she couldn't keep him a secret for much longer. She didn't want to introduce him to her parents until he'd found a stable job, and so she was holding off for as long as she possibly could until she couldn't anymore. One day in August 2017, only a few months into their relationship, Chao Feng was obviously still keeping Yi Dong hidden from her parents. Well, soon that would no longer be an option, because they dropped by her apartment unannounced while she was at work, and Yi Dong was just asleep in her bed. And you know what? Her parents are better than me, because I would have screamed. I would have screamed the house down. I would have called 999. Like, there would have been a whole palaver. But they kind of assumed the situation. They were like, oh my God, Chao Feng's got a boy round at the apartment that she hasn't told us about. So they didn't freak out. They just kind of like went into the living room and assumed that this boy that had just seen them, like, he wasn't fully asleep, I don't think, at this point in time. He knew that they were in the house, basically. So her parents just went and sat in the living room thinking, surely he's gonna like get himself up and out of bed and come and say hi to us, come and speak to us. We are his girlfriend's parents after all. But what did he do? He just slammed the bedroom door and went back to sleep for another 2 hours. Oh my God. Could you imagine? You're already a bit worried about introducing your boyfriend to your parents because you know that he's just a bit of a bum. And this is the first impression that they get of him, that he is rude, that he doesn't want to talk to them, that he is just sleeping the day away. I would just be so embarrassed, you know? And I can't believe he didn't have that thing in his own brain to want to give a good impression to the in-laws. Like, why do you want this to be how they see you? So later that day, Chao Feng gets back from work and her parents pull her to the side and they tell her everything that had happened, and they, you know, imply that they don't really approve of this man. And I don't blame them. This is a very bad first impression. But they tell Chao Feng that they will support her whatever she does with her life, no matter what job, no matter what man, even if it is a bum that sleeps all day and ignores them when they come to visit. And you know what is really weird? To say that Yi Dong really didn't care about the impression he made on her parents, he was really keen for her to meet his parents. So when the Lunar New Year came round in February of 2018, he was desperate to get them in a room for them to meet her. He was really proud of this woman that he'd found, you know? She was an incredible girl. And I think the reason he was so proud was because he knew deep down, or even not that deep down, that he didn't actually deserve Chao Feng. I think he must have felt like he'd won the girlfriend lottery, you know? So the Lunar New Year comes around, and it's common for older family members to give younger ones red envelopes full of money. This symbolizes like good wishes, success, good luck for the year ahead. The more money given means the more good wishes to that person, so the more money the better. Obviously, the amount of money given is very dependent on the person's income and how much spare money they actually have. Well, when Yi Dong's parents met Chao Feng, they gave her so much money, over £1,000, which was like a full month of their wages. And this was the first time they'd ever met her as well. They had really scraped up for them to be able to make a good impression on her. They also believed that their son had won the girlfriend lottery. They really wanted her to stay with him. So maybe that's why they gave her so much money. It's kind of giving like, please marry our son, please. I feel like every parent would want their son to end up with a woman like Chao Feng. She was just so kind, so ambitious. She was such a wonderful woman. But I also feel like every parent would hate for their daughter to end up with a man like Yi Dong. Later that month, after she had literally just met his parents, Yi Dong's anger towards Chao Feng increased. One morning, the two of them got into a heated argument, but Chao Feng was due in at work very quickly. This argument was going to make her late, and so she actually had to try and leave in the middle of it. Well, she tried to calm it down, but he wasn't calming, so in the end, she had to just go and get in her car and drive to work. But as she was driving, out of nowhere, Yi Dong suddenly runs out into the middle of the road and like forces her to stop. It turns out he had taken a shortcut. He had like ran to where she was going to be at that point in the road so that he could continue the argument out on the street now, make her late for work. When he came over, he demanded that she hand over her phone and her car keys, and she did that, and he ran away with them. She had literally just been robbed by her boyfriend in broad daylight on her way to work. What the fuck is happening? She was just so confused and so upset, and she felt so alone. Like, that is her partner. That's the person that she's supposed to go to in times like this where she's feeling sad and scared and anxious, but he's the man that just caused this. Chao Feng was sat in her car that obviously couldn't go anywhere now. He'd taken her keys and she was just sobbing. She eventually got out of her car and started running round to try and flag down another passerby so that she could borrow their phone and get someone to come and help her. So she called her brother, who very quickly came to rescue Chao Feng and her car. And this was actually the first time that Yi Dong ever met Chao Feng's older brother, was when he had to go and take back the items that Yi Dong had stolen from her. This guy is seriously training for like the Olympics in bad first impressions. This is insane. Later that night, when Yi Dong and Chao Feng were reunited, I think back at the apartment, she tried to break up with him. I mean, this was ridiculous and so unforgivable, and he is just not having it. He actually sent her a video, right? And this bit made me laugh. Not even gonna lie, I was laughing at him. He sent her a video of him crying and begging for forgiveness. It's giving that one Snapchat screenshot of like, feel like pure shit, just want her back. Like, he was giving her the ick, I fear. But he was sending her all these videos, like so many of him saying that he can't live without her. He needs her back. His life is nothing without her. He was really trying to manipulate her. He was really trying to say that if you don't come and get back with me, then my life is ruined and something bad might happen. And while we can all acknowledge in this moment that Yi Dong was no good for Chao Feng, we have to remember that this was her first ever relationship. This was her only experience of love, or what love is supposed to be. And so she really didn't know any different. She didn't know that this isn't actually what it's supposed to be like. She didn't realize how much better it could be with a different person, with someone that's actually nice to her, someone that cares about her feelings. Yi Dong was older than her. He was more experienced in relationships, and he was much more confrontational, full stop. Chao Feng was so out of her depth in this relationship, and every time that Yi Dong was done being so awful to her, he would then switch up and immediately shower her with love and affection, and all that love bombing would come flooding back, and she'd be worn down by it all, and she would take him back. So she forgave him, their relationship was back on, but then literally 3 weeks later, everything would go wrong again. One day in April, Chao Feng had a dance competition with her school, and it was a trip that she was going to be going on, and that morning, Yi Dong was insistent that he was coming with her. It's a little bit weird. Like, why do you need to come? You don't need to be on her work trip with all of these little kids that she teaches dance. I don't know, there's something weird about that to me. But anyway, he hops in the car and he's coming along with her. And as they were driving, as per usual, he starts an argument. And all their fights were pretty much the same. They were on the same few topics. He was mad that she had her own money and her own job. I think he was very jealous of that. As much as he couldn't be bothered going out and getting it for himself, I think he wanted that financial independence and just didn't have it. But another one of their arguments, his favourite kind of argument, was that he was just so jealous of other men. He was convinced that Chow Fong was speaking to other men, or that she liked other men, or like another man was gonna come in and like, I don't know. He was just always complaining about other men, and Chow Fong had never even so much as looked in another man's direction the whole time she'd been with him. She couldn't understand where that jealousy was coming from, but boy was it coming. Yi Dong was just so obsessed with Chow Fong in such an unhealthy way, and I mean, him tagging along on this work trip is a prime example of that, of how he needed control over her at all times. He wanted eyes on her. He didn't have his own life. Chow Fong was his life. So, when they actually arrived to this performance, the plan was that Chow Fong was going to go in, she was going to, do the job, work with the kids, do the performance, it was going to be great. This whole time, Yi Dong was supposed to be waiting in the car for her return. But after a few hours after the performance, when she did eventually return to the car, Yi Dong was gone, and the car was trashed. It was so vandalized. He'd completely smashed up her display screen. He had ripped the bumper off. All of this damage costed thousands. And Chow Fong drove a brand new Mercedes. Oh my god, it pains me to even think about it. He knew, as he was doing all of that damage, that those repairs were going to be so expensive. I'm not entirely sure what she did after that or how she got home, but she did. Later that evening, she was in her apartment when she hears banging on the door. Of course, it's Yi Dong. But this was actually around midnight. He had woken her up from her slumber, and she just did not want to deal with him right now. So she refused to let him in. And so he got so angry that he starts kicking the door down. And just bear in mind, he didn't live there. He had just practically kind of moved himself in rent-free, but there was never an official conversation. This was never a thing that he lived there. So he is literally breaking into her apartment right now. And Chow Fong was terrified. She called up her brother. She was in tears, telling him that Yi Dong was trying to force his way into her apartment. So her brother puts his shoes on and rushes as quickly as he can over to her house. And as soon as he arrives, Yi Dong runs away. What, so he can be this aggressive and intimidating with a woman, but as soon as a man gets involved, he's scared. By this point, all of Chow Fong's family hated Yi Dong. They were constantly encouraging her to split up with him and move on and find someone better. In fact, her grandparents had actually gone to a psychic and done like a whole birth chart reading on the couple. And this psychic had even said, these are a match made in hell. Do not let them stay together. Her family began to pray that fate would break the couple up. And soon their prayers would be answered. The two of them wouldn't be together much longer. But not because of a breakup. It would be death that would part them. In reality, Chow Fong felt like it was virtually impossible to leave Yi Dong and move forward with her life. In relationships like this, when the victim tries to get away, it's likely to be a very long, drawn-out breakup, even quite dangerous. And Chow Fong knew that, but she was very brave. And she ended things with him for a second time. And like clockwork, just as he felt her slipping away from his control once again, Yi Dong turned on the waterworks. He got the camera out, he got the selfie phone back out. Selfie phone? How old am I? He got the phone back out, got the selfie camera out, and he starts sobbing on camera to her again, just giving her the ick, begging for her forgiveness. And you know what? As much as I'm laughing at that as a technique to try to get someone back, we don't know what he was actually saying in these videos, and it sounds manipulative as hell. And it worked. For a second time, she ended up going back to him because she just felt so bad. But like the emotional roller coaster that this relationship was, peace between them never lasted very long. Remember earlier on in the episode when we said that Yi Dong might have had a clothing company, but he never really seemed to do any work and never really talked about it, so did it even exist? Well, it turns out Yi Dong had been very busy attending to a different kind of business instead. his gambling. At the end of April, Chow Fung had discovered that Yi Dong had run up so much debt, it was insane. It was clear that gambling had become an addiction for him, and he was losing a lot through it. So we can add financial insecurity to the long list of reasons why Chow Fung felt like she needed to get away from this man, because with gambling, it's not even just the loss of money, but it's everything that unfortunately comes along with it. It's not uncommon for people that are in the pits of that kind of addiction to begin lying and stealing money and manipulating the people around them in order to feed their need to gamble. It can turn people very angry, and Yi Dong was already emotionally turbulent as it was. So when Chow Fung discovered his growing debt, she broke up with Yi Dong for a third time. She was hoping she'd be able to get out of this relationship before the consequences of his gambling could reach her, but it was already too late. By now that they're on breakup number 3, I bet Yi Dong felt like there wasn't much point in trying to beg and cry on video for her to come back, you know, his usual MO. Instead, it seems he tried to juice her for every penny that he could before she was fully out of his life. One day, while she was at work, post-breakup, Yi Dong had hired a locksmith to come over and change the locks to her own house so that he could break in and rob her while she was at work. Of course, as soon as Chow Fung discovered this, she called the police, and it was very clear who had done this. Everyone knew that it was Yi Dong. But in that moment, Chow Fung felt really bad for him. I mean, now that he was going to be facing criminal charges, she felt like she had to protect him. And so she told the police that he hadn't broken in. She doesn't think it was him, and she doesn't want to press charges on him. She was just such a sweet and empathetic person to her own detriment. I mean, she could tell that Yi Dong had gotten to this point through addiction, and she just felt bad for him. She couldn't feel any animosity when she knew that this person wasn't well. And I guess this was a new possible explanation for his terrible treatment of her. He was unwell. He was battling addiction. And she really didn't want to see him go to prison for this. She just had such a big heart. So she managed to kind of save him from the police pressing charges and all of that kind of stuff, and to apologize to her and to try to win her back, Yi Dong went out and bought Chow Fung a puppy, which, you know, sounds wonderful, but the actual implications of having a puppy meant that this couple were now bonded together even more than before, now that they were dog parents. He had essentially trapped her even more. Just as she was starting to get away from him, he goes and gets them a dog together. Over those 3 months, from February to May, the couple had broken up and gotten back together 3 times. And obviously, it was always Chow Fung being the one doing the breaking up and Yi Dong being the one begging to get back together with her. He was just too good at wearing her down. And soon his grip on her would extend beyond her own reality, and he began controlling her virtually. In late May, the two of them decided to go on a bit of a, romance repair trip, a bit of a make or break trip. They were going to go away and try to rekindle the flame and fix things, as if a weekend away can fix this man. So they went to the city of Hangzhou, and it has this really famous lake that kind of wraps around the city. And so the two of them go on a boat trip. And it was on this boat trip that the two of them would record that video of Chow Fung that ended up going viral. And little did she know that video would be the start of a whole new nightmare. So the two of them are on this boat, admiring the gorgeous views, and then Yi Dong pulls his phone out and begins to record Chow Fung. It has this trending song over the back of it. This song was massive on Douyin at the time, and Chow Fung sat there just doing some cute little hand moves. She looks really pretty. It's got all the background of the lake in the back. It's really aesthetically pleasing. So it's no surprise that when Yi Dong actually posted this video onto Douyin, it blew up. TikTok is such a funny thing, and I wonder if Douyin is the same. Well, it seems it, actually. It takes just the most simple stuff to really hit with an audience and to blow up. I guess it was the combination of like a trending sound, her being so beautiful, the setting on the lake, like she was just dancing, having fun, it was good vibes. Whatever it was, this video hit and it did numbers. It literally got like 1.8 million likes. Chow Feng was just a normal girl, but suddenly she had millions of eyes on her and they wanted more from her. As the likes rolled in, so did the financial possibilities, the brand deals. Yidong's eyes basically lit up with dollar signs. This was an opportunity and he was going to earn. I believe the account was just his like personal Douyin page that he had. He'd never posted anything before. So this video really was so random. They never planned to be a sensation or to be influencers. The account obviously wasn't even branded with Chow Feng's name. It was her boyfriend's account. But after that first video blew up, in the space of a month after that, between the 26th of May and the 26th of June, he had forced Chow Feng to film 59 different videos, and they'd all been uploaded to this same account and they were all doing pretty damn well. He would spend hours researching on Douyin, finding all the trending sounds, all the trending dances, all the different concepts, and forcing Chow Feng to film and do brand deals and gain more followers. And this constant posting meant that their account skyrocketed to nearly 500,000 followers in that month. But this wasn't an account that Chow Feng had any authority over. She had no say in it. It was Yidong that was accepting all of these brand deals on her behalf. He was the one taking the payments into his bank. So now that all these contracts are signed and they've agreed to do these brand deals, well, Chow Feng had no choice. She was forced, against her will, to record videos promoting products and dancing while receiving none of the money. She made it clear to Yidong that she did not want to be an influencer. She wanted to live this quiet life, just teaching dance to kids. She would always tell him how much she didn't want to record videos. She didn't really enjoy it, but he wouldn't listen to her. He would just tell her, well, we've accepted more brand deals, so you have to. You don't have a choice. Chow Feng would eventually give in every single time and just film these videos for him just because she wanted to avoid his violent rage. Because, yeah, it appeared as though things had gotten worse in their relationship. Up until this point, Yidong's rage had been mostly verbal. He would shout at her and call her awful things. Or he would take out this violence on her belongings. He would break her stuff. He would slam doors. But Chow Feng's family had an awful feeling that he was putting his hands on her too. I mean, there was no way that he could be filled with so much violent rage against so many inanimate objects and not once put a hand on Chow Feng herself. From what we could find when researching, there was never any evidence of her having like big bruises or cuts or like obvious injuries from him, but that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Chow Feng was constantly begging him to just ease off on Douyin, like, don't make me film any more videos, but he didn't want to hear it. He actually turned around to her and said, well, I've signed 2 more brand deals this morning for £450 each, so you better start dancing. After this interaction, Chow Feng felt so defeated. She really felt hopeless, like she didn't have a way out of this life. And so she was messaging her friend privately saying, he is trying to make Douyin a career. I told him I want to stop being on it, but he wants to live off it. To which her friend replies, essentially telling her that this guy's taking the piss. He's meant to be your boyfriend, but he's using you to make money. All of her friends begged her to leave him. They had seen her going through hell at his side. And so finally, with the confidence that this conversation with her friend had just given her, Chow Feng decided that she was finally going to leave him for good. But she knew that straight up breaking up with him, like breaking things off completely, wouldn't work. He would go crazy. Not only was she his girlfriend, but she was also his cash cow, and she knew that he wouldn't take lightly to losing both of those in one. So she decided to try and distance herself from him first, to, make excuses whenever he wanted to see her. She would say that she was already busy or she was at work. But none of this was really working. She just couldn't get rid of him because obviously now she she was his income, and so he wasn't really letting her out of his sight. And I mean, we've already said that this man doesn't have much going on with his life. He didn't have anything else to spend time doing other than wondering where she is and when they can make another Douyin video. In the middle of the night on June 20th, 2018, Chao Feng was sleeping soundly in bed beside Yi Dong, who was still awake. He stayed up, and while she couldn't do anything about it, he transferred himself £1,000 from her bank account. When she woke up the next morning and saw this, she was so heartbroken. Again, she just tried to kick him out. She was just so done with this man and the many ways that he was ruining her life. She just didn't want to see him anymore. But of course, he refused to leave, and so she actually starts to try and push him out of her door all by herself, because fuck this. Fuck having this man in her life anymore. During all of this commotion, I think as she was trying to push him out of the door, he ended up grabbing hold of it and pulling on it so hard that the whole damn thing came off. Her front door. So she literally didn't have a door to her house anymore. How unsafe. And how horrifying to see such a display of violence and aggression and strength. So she called her family in floods of tears, begging for help because, well, I mean, her apartment wasn't safe to live in anymore. It didn't have a front door. And for her family, this was beyond the final straw for Yi Dong. They desperately wanted to get her away from this man, but they knew that there wasn't much that they could actually do. I mean, Chao Feng was a fully grown woman. If she wants to stay in the city and if she wants to see this man again, then she's gonna. But her parents did have one thing over her, and that was that they'd bought her apartment. The place that she was living in the city that Yi Dong would always go and stay at as well, that was owned by her parents. So they came up with a plan. They told her that they had to sell that place. She couldn't live there anymore. And in the time being, until they find her a new place, she would have to come home and stay with them in their house. So she moves back home, and her parents are breathing a sigh of relief because, I mean, now they have eyes on her. They can watch her, they can protect her. And for the first couple of weeks that she was away from him, things really seemed to calm down between her and Yi Dong. That was until the 12th of July, when she officially broke up with him for what would finally be the last time. After that, she blocked him on everything. She changed her phone number. She didn't want this man tracking her down and trying to contact her ever again. This would finally be the end to such a horrific first relationship. But literally within days of her changing her phone number, he had managed to find her new number, and he was contacting her, calling her, texting her, and not even just off his own phone. He was getting different phones so that different numbers would go through to her, because obviously she knew to block his. So he was getting burner phones just to harass and stalk this woman, until eventually he employed what would be his most sadistic tactic yet. He was calling her again and again and again, and she was refusing to pick up. She was just trying to ignore him getting back into her life. She would decline his calls again and again and again, and eventually she texted him saying, "You can't fix things this way." But all he said back to that was, "Answer the phone, answer." She didn't. She kept declining his calls until eventually Yi Dong sent her a video of him abusing the puppy that he had bought for her as an apology gift. In this video, he is literally holding the dog up by its lead, dangling her out of the window on a really high up floor. He was texting Chao Feng saying, "If you decline, I will make you watch her die." Of course, this absolutely shattered Chao Feng when she saw that video, and she wasn't having it, so she rushed right to where he was to rescue that dog. She actually ended up giving him money, about £420, in exchange for the dog's life. Let me remind you, this is the dog that he had gifted her as an apology present, as a make good, and now he was threatening to kill it. After this, Chao Feng had rescued the dog, and she desperately wanted to try and cut every single tie that she could possibly have to this man. She didn't want him to have any singular, even tiny reason to have to get in touch with her or to have a problem with her. So one thing she did was actually hand back that envelope of money that his parents had given her on the Lunar New Year. I assume she'd already spent it, but she gave back that same amount of money so that he couldn't hold that over her. Towards the end of July, Yi Dong was still doing everything he could to follow Chow Feng around, to keep in touch with her, to keep stalking her. He was physically stalking her. There was one time when she went to go and meet up with one of her guy friends in the park. They were literally just walking around. She, of course, didn't know that Yi Dong was hiding in the shadows somewhere watching her, and him seeing her with another man, even though it was just a friend, it sent him over the edge. And Yi Dong hadn't come to the park unarmed. He had a knife in his pocket as he was stalking her. As soon as he saw her and this guy getting a little bit too close, Yi Dong raced out of the shadows and charged at the two of them. He was verbally and physically attacking the two of them, mainly the guy, and then all of a sudden he pulls the knife from his pocket, totally willing to use it. Chow Feng screamed and called the police, and this actually panicked Yi Dong. He didn't actually use the knife in the end, he just threw it to the side and ran away. And luckily her friend was fine. No one was majorly hurt that evening, just super shaken up. But now someone else had laid witness to Yi Dong's violence. Up until this point, Chow Feng had been kind of keeping that part of everything a secret. I mean, her parents already really didn't like him just because he was a bum and he was rude. So of course she hadn't told them that he can get violent and aggressive and mean, and now he was fucking running at them with a knife. And so this friend went and told Chow Feng's parents about how dangerous Yi Dong really is. And her family were petrified at how easily he had managed to track her down. What with her blocking him on everything, blocking his number, how had he managed to stalk her everywhere? They were actually really worried that he might have put in a secret tracker on her car and been able to, find her at the park that way. And so they said to her, please don't go anywhere on your own. Like, if you want to go somewhere, call one of us, we'll give you a lift there. Don't come home from work on your own. Like, nothing. Don't do anything alone. And how upsetting is that? That this woman simply wanted to end a relationship, something that you should be allowed to do without fearing for your fucking life. Yi Dong was just so obsessed with her, it was starting to feel like, if I can't have you, no one can. Over the next few days, he continued to send her those videos of him like kneeling on the floor, literally begging her, crying, sobbing, pleading. And she didn't respond to a single one of these videos, and there were multiple. Like, he was really trying. And then on August 1st, Chow Feng woke up to a text from Yi Dong asking if she could meet him. And of course, she ignored that too. There was no chance she was going to meet up with him. As the hours passed, with his videos and texts going unanswered, his tears began to turn to threats. At 4:23 p.m, he texted saying, "You're done. Fuck it. You've completely pissed me off. Let's die together." And then a minute later, he followed up, basically saying along the lines of, "Fuck you. You'll go to hell. Just you wait." He is just so full of rage, and he wants to see Chow Feng living in his hell too. And he was so serious about these threats. And receiving these kind of messages wasn't a new thing for Chow Feng. She'd had it through their whole entire relationship. For the past 6 months, she had had to put up with verbal abuse like this, especially over text. So of course, she was scared, as she was every time she read another text like this. But by this point, she was also largely numb to his abuse and to his threats. At 5:31 p.m. that day, she texted her mother saying that she didn't actually need a lift home from work because she was going to go to the cinema with friends. Her mum instantly replied saying, okay, that's fine, but she did advise her not to go to the cinema if there were going to be any men there because, well, you know what Yi Dong would do if he stalked her to the cinema and saw her with another man. Chow Feng assured her mother that it would be fine, and at 8 p.m, she left the dance center and got into a friend's car. Little did she know, Yi Dong was in the car right behind them. He was watching, waiting, and following. As she and her friend were pulling into the mall car park, Chow Feng actually noticed that Yi Dong was behind her, and fear shot through her body. Not only was she so scared for her own safety, as she always was with Yi Dong, she was very aware of the fact that it wasn't just her in danger right now. It was her friend too. And Chow Feng, the selfless woman that she was, she didn't want to risk any harm coming to her friend. And so she jumped out of the car and just began running. She was heading for the business district, which would have been quite full. Lots of workers walking around at this point in time. And there would be safety in front of so many people, so many witnesses. By now, it was 8:55 p.m. Yi Dong had leapt from his own car and began chasing down Chow Feng on foot. And what was even more terrifying, he was now wearing a mask. Whatever he was about to do, he did not want people to see his face. He ran until he eventually caught up to Chow Feng, grabbing her and dragging her into a game store. He cornered her right in front of some claw machines, you know, the grabby machines. He forcibly hugged Chow Feng while she screamed for help. She knew that this wasn't an innocent hug, that this wasn't an innocent meeting. He was gonna hurt her, but her cries wouldn't save her. In front of that arcade machine, filled with the cutest stuffed animals, Yi Dong pulled a knife from his pocket, his gaze locked on the woman that no longer wanted him. The knife he had brought had a serrated edge. It was like a bread knife, you know, with those jagged edges. It wouldn't make a clean cut. It would make, quite frankly, a mess. Chow Feng screamed again at the sight of this massive weapon, and she tried to wriggle free, but he held her tightly in this hug while he pushed the knife into her stomach. He then twisted it inside her before pulling it back out and repeating again and again and again. After 10 or so of these excruciating, twisting, stabbing motions, Chow Feng lost all of the energy in her body, all of her strength, and she fell forward. It seemed like Yi Dong had been holding her up with one arm while he was stabbing her with the other arm. So then once she slipped, she fell forward. But he didn't stop the attack. He then began just stabbing her in the neck. The shop owner had seen this happening and he had actually tried to interfere. He had tried to get Yi Dong away from Chow Feng. He got out a broom and started trying to hit him with it. But when he did, Yi Dong tried to turn on him. And we're not 100% sure if he just attempted to or did actually stab the shop owner as well. This whole ordeal lasted only 3 minutes. But they would be the last 3 minutes of Chen Chow Feng's life. At 8:58 p.m., just 3 minutes after he had chased her in there, Yi Dong left the shop and left Chow Feng's body behind. At only 22 years old, Chen Chow Feng, the beautiful, kind, adored dancer who had dedicated her life to teaching children, was publicly murdered by her obsessive, abusive, controlling ex-boyfriend. In her autopsy, it was found that some of her stab wounds were as large as 40 centimeters. That's 40. We believe that he was kind of going in angled, like pointing it up and pointing it in different directions to try to inflict as much damage as possible, because honestly, when I first heard a 40 centimeter deep wound, I was thinking surely that would have gone all the way through her. And I'm not entirely sure about that, but the first theory is just so horrifying, so disturbing. She had been stabbed 16 times in total, and from the way that he had been twisting that knife, her wounds were so big, they were like cut out triangles. Soon after, the police and ambulances began to arrive as a swarm of people had already gathered around the shop. Chow Feng had run into this densely populated area, shouting for help on purpose, thinking that he couldn't possibly do anything to her in front of all of these people. She thought she had found safety in such a large crowd. But instead of acting as a shield for Chow Feng, the public just stood by as an audience to her murder. And there's actually a name for when this happens. It's called the bystander effect. It's a theory that suggests that people are a lot less likely to help out if there are loads of other people around as well. The more bystanders there are, the less likely anyone is to help, because the responsibility to act is shared among so many more people. And this happens all the time. Like, they have observed this effect in every country, in practically every walk of life. And it's just so horrifying to think that something so terrible could be going on literally in front of people's eyes, but they're not going to do anything for you. For example, in 2020, on a busy London Underground tube, a girl was raped by a complete stranger in front of the rest of the carriage, and no one stepped in to help her. It's believed that the more people are present, the more likely people are to kind of lose a little bit of empathy and become desensitized to whatever it is they're witnessing. And this desensitization was happening right now in real time. People were recognizing Chow Feng as the dancer from Douyin that they'd seen on their newsfeed. And just like she couldn't escape having the phone shoved in her face when she was alive, she was now being exploited and subjected to the same thing in death. People were filming the scene and taking photos of the paramedics that were trying to work on her body. She was forced to live and die online. It's heartbreaking. By 9:30 p.m. that same night, Yi Dong had actually handed himself in to the police. He knew that he had been caught on CCTV. There was a trail of incriminating texts that he had sent to her phone. There was no way that he was ever going to get away from this. And so he thought that handing himself in might mean a lesser sentence. In the months that awaited the trial, Chow Feng's family started sorting through all of her belongings to help build a stronger case against Yi Dong. And they discovered that on the day that she was killed, she had less than £1 in her bank account because he had drained everything from it. And remember, her job brought in over £1,000 a month, and she was currently living with her parents, so she probably should have had a bit of something in the bank. There wasn't much that her money was going on other than when he stole it. When her family read through her phone, they saw so many texts of this man emotionally manipulating her, verbally abusing her. Where their messages had started out all romantic and lovey-dovey, he would say things like, "I love you, I can't spend a single day without you." Well, in the recent months and weeks of their relationship, those texts had turned into threats that he was going to break into her flat and hurt her. And what made it even worse was that the public opinion at the time was just so wrong. Online, Chow Feng was being victim blamed so bad. People were saying that she was cheating on him, that she was a gold digger, that she was money hungry, and that he must have just lost his temper in a fit of rage, and maybe she deserved it. It absolutely infuriates me to think that this is the conclusion that so many people jumped to. The misogynistic conclusion. Automatically assuming that there's no way in hell a beautiful woman like Chow Feng would ever be able to have her own job and pay her own bills, that she wasn't relying on a man to keep her stable. It was like they didn't believe that she was a human in her own right, that she couldn't earn her own money, that she must have been sleeping around and taking advantage and draining every man that she came across of their money. Which, let me remind you of her name, the name that her parents had given her and that she had grown to suit so well. Chow Feng, she was a skilled worker. She was full of skill and technique. Yet he was just the one that was benefiting from her. Remember, that was what his name meant. It just absolutely infuriates me to think that that was the conclusion that so many people jumped to just because she was a pretty girl. And I bet the fact that she was also seen as an influencer had a lot to do with that too. People judged her and didn't seem to like her right off the bat just because she was so pretty and she danced online. At the time in 2018, dances on Douyin weren't regarded all that highly in China. Chow Feng wearing shorts and t-shirts, doing simple dances and looking pretty just wasn't that respected. People saw it as a slightly slippery slope into more promiscuous sort of content. Obviously, no one was accusing her of being an adult content creator at this point in time, but it's almost as if the next step up from what she was doing at that point would have practically been sex work in the eyes of society. Things have changed since, and I believe the dancers aren't viewed as harshly as it's become so much more popular worldwide. But at the time, that was one of the many reasons that Chow Feng didn't want to be a Douyin dancer. She didn't want that as a job. Especially because she was a kids teacher as well. I mean, all it would take is for one Karen parent to find one of her videos and call for her to be fired due to what they believe is inappropriate content. It wasn't just that she didn't enjoy filming all this content that he was forcing her to do, it was the fact that it could ruin her life, the life that she had been building for herself, and he didn't care. And what is so horrifying about the aftermath of this case is that Yi Dong's family actually backed him up. They supported him and fueled his fire of lies that Chow Feng was a promiscuous, cheating gold digger, just draining him of his money. In China, capital punishment is still a thing. You can still get the death penalty for a serious crime in China, and the prosecution decided that Yi Dong could be facing this death penalty. And that's certainly what Chow Feng's family were fighting for. They wanted him to lose his life just the way that he had taken hers. But his family were doing anything and everything they could to save their son's life. They were spreading lies all throughout the city and even online that Chow Feng had refused to return the money that they had given her for the Lunar New Year. They were saying that she had just taken that £1,000 from them and then broken Yi Dong's heart and left him in the mud, you know? And this was just so heartbreaking for Chow Feng's family to hear that her character was being smeared like this in front of the whole country, and they were believing it as well. And so, to try to defend her, her brother and his wife made signs that they would go out and stand on the street with, and they would post photos with these signs. And these signs basically set the record straight. They had the facts on of what kind of person Chow Feng was. The two of them live streamed themselves doing this every night, going out into town with these signs, desperate to end all of these false accusations against Chow Feng, against a woman that doesn't have a voice to defend herself. But it wasn't until police released the details of this case and Yi Dong went to court that suddenly all of these wrong narratives were stopped, because people finally saw the truth. 8 months after murdering Chow Feng, on April 3rd, 2019, Yi Dong appeared in court on trial for her murder. He argued that he didn't intend to kill Chow Feng that night. He just wanted to talk to her, but she kept running away from him. So he said that he had pulled this knife out just to scare her, you know, just to make her stay and talk to him. But it only made the situation worse. At the sight of this knife, Chow Feng began screaming for help, and he just wanted to make her stop. He said that in that moment, he just kind of blacked out and mindlessly started stabbing her. Further into the trial, he actually went on to blame Chow Feng's own mother for her daughter's death, saying that if she'd have just picked her up from work that day and dropped her off at the cinema rather than her getting a ride with a friend, then Chow Feng would still be alive today. And that is genuinely one of the most callous things I have ever seen a murderer do in the aftermath of a case. It's like he was still trying to abuse her, even in death, by going after her mum. And when her poor mum heard him say this in front of the whole courtroom, that she was the reason that her daughter was dead, she fainted. What an evil thing to do to a woman who is freshly grieving her daughter and had probably already had these thoughts swirling through her head that she might have been able to change something, she might have been able to stop him. Of course, none of this was her mother's fault and she couldn't have stopped any of it, but him saying that is just so evil. But importantly, no one was buying his bullshit. The whole courtroom was siding with the victim, thank God. After the deliberation, the judge had decided that Yi Dong had planned revenge because Chow Feng wouldn't take him back. It was clear that he had followed her into the city centre that night with the intention of it becoming a violent interaction if he didn't get the outcome that he wanted. I mean, he had literally taken a fucking serrated knife with him. He purposefully and intentionally murdered Chow Feng in anger because he could no longer control her. At the end of this trial, the judge sentenced Yi Dong to death for his crime. He got the death penalty. Although he did try to appeal it right away and it did go to court. And this time he kind of tried to change his tactic. He pleaded mental insanity and his family even got up and showed a medical certificate that proved that he had sought help. But it was literally only a few days before he ended up murdering Chow Feng, and he had only gone to seek help for depression. And I don't want that to sound reductive. Of course, depression can be so debilitating for so many people, but I don't think this was a product of his depression, really. I don't think a certificate from your psychiatrist saying, yeah, I treated him for depression once a few days ago, I don't think that can get you out of this, babe. If anything, it kind of seemed just like a big excuse, maybe a pre-planned excuse. He knew that he was getting to the point where he might kill Chow Feng any day now, so maybe he should go and check himself in with a psychiatrist just to lay the groundwork and let everyone know that he thinks he's a bit crazy. I don't know. Either way, the appeal was denied and his death sentence was upheld. He was going to be executed. August 31st, 2020 was the day that Yi Dong would be executed by the state. And that same evening, around 20 to 30 of Yi Dong's friends and family all swarmed around Chow Feng's family home, screaming, shouting, and cursing at all of her family members. They felt like it was Chow Feng's fault, the murder victim's fault, that their son was being executed for murder. Make that make sense. His family had just been to their final visit in prison to say goodbye to him, and on their way back, they were so angry and so upset that they decided to take it out on Chow Feng's family, which is so disgusting. And I mean, it is a tricky one because I can't even imagine what it would be like as a parent to say goodbye to your child in those circumstances, you know, going to visit him in prison, knowing that he had essentially killed himself, that was the last time you're ever going to see and speak to that boy because he had gone out and killed someone. I mean, I imagine it's a nightmare all in itself for his parents, but surely they can imagine what a nightmare it must be for Chow Feng's family. And if you can acknowledge that, why the fuck would you then go and terrorize them at their house for simply being victims of your evil son? Tensions had escalated that much that the police came and they actually had to take Yi Dong's father away, and he was screaming and shouting on his way to the police car about how his son is gone. Yeah, and so is their daughter. So is Chow Feng. All because she wanted to escape an abusive man. But his family persisted. They did this day in, day out. They would go outside of Chow Feng's family home and just scream the most obscene shit at her surviving family members. Yi Dong's last act on this earth was to sign away his organs after his execution. As an attempt for making up for taking Chow Feng's life, he wanted to give someone else theirs. But, like all narcissistic men, this was just for show. I mean, he didn't feel sorry for what he had done. It was so performative. If he actually felt sorry for what he had done, he would have apologized to Chow Feng's family in the aftermath. He would have written a letter, something. But he never said a solid word to them at all because he didn't care. Honestly, the whole time he just saw Chow Feng as his property in every sense of the word. Her body, her loyalty, her time, her money, it all belonged to him. She was his to kill. And as we've said a couple of times, he had absolutely nothing else going for him in life. He had no life. She was his life. But domestic violence isn't a cultural or country-based issue. It's an anybody and any home issue. It's important to me to end these cases by showcasing an organisation that we really truly believe in. And today I want to give a shout out to IDAS. It's a Yorkshire-based charity that helps women and children across all the different counties in Northern England to escape domestic violence. So for my Yorkshire girls at home, if you need to, please reach out to IDAS. They can offer you help. If you've been affected by any part of Chow Feng's story or know someone that might, their link will be in the description of this episode. And for everyone else all around the world, not just Yorkshire, I want to call attention to the link tree that we have in the description of every single episode. If you're looking for resources or charities or even a helpline, if you yourself need help, please go and have a look. I'm so sure that there is someone on that link tree that can help you. And I just want to say on the back of our shout out to the wonderful charity IDAS, for everyone else that's maybe not in that region, please have a look at the smaller charities in your area. If you're looking for help or even if you're looking to support, the smaller local charities can be so helpful, and I feel like not many people know of them. Since Chow Feng's death, her mother has never recovered. She continually cleans her daughter's bedroom and polishes all of her dance trophies. She is unable to move on with the fact that Chao Feng isn't here anymore. Before her death, her parents had actually built her a house on the same street that they lived in, and they imagined her moving in there one day with her husband and raising kids in there. And now she was never even going to see it completed. But sadly, the house just sits empty now. It will never get to see the beautiful life that Chao Feng was supposed to live, all because of a man that couldn't get his own way, and now both of their lives are lost. And that's everything we have for today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. This has been another long one, huh? And a huge shout out again to Casetify for sponsoring this video. We really appreciate it. The biggest sale of the year. You could get up to 30% off, and these discounts only last for 2 weeks. So go casetify.com/Eleanor. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up or leave a comment down below. If you're looking for a free way to support me and my team and the work that we do here on this channel, engaging with the video helps to push it out further. So if you want to support us, leave a little comment. We love reading the comments. As a team, we sit and we scroll and we read. We love it. But thank you so much for watching. If you want to watch another video of mine, there'll be one on screen right now. Or if you want to subscribe to my channel, you can click the circle with my face in, and make sure you're putting our notifications on so you never miss a new video. And with all that being said, I will see you in the next one. Bye!